morning. My name is Ileana, and I'm a librarian at San Francisco Public Library in California on the unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples. Wherever you're tuning in from, we're so happy to have you with us today, and I'm excited to welcome you to this week's Nature Boost. We truly hope you are enjoying our virtual program this summer. It's all a part of Summer Stride, our award-winning summer learning and reading program for all ages. Today's program is part of our Nature Boost series, brought to you in partnership with the National Park Service, the Golden Gate Parks Conservancy, and the Presidio Trust. Visit our virtual trailhead at sfpl.org/virtual trailhead. Check us out next week for our final Nature Boost, Learn, Park Careers, the Gray, the Green, and the In-Between, where you'll meet park rangers and other friends on a live panel exploring careers in your national parks. Tune in and let your friends know to join us for this special Nature Boost. Today's program and all of our Nature Boost programs are made possible thanks to the support of our wonderful sponsors. So let's learn about those beautiful bats that we're all here to see. Bats are unique, interesting, beneficial, and a little mysterious. We have the chance to learn more about these nighttime neighbors and hear from Katie Smith, Assistant Biological Monitor with the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. If you have any questions for Katie about bats and her work at the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, please add them to the chat. You can also find resources there as well. Enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Katie Smith. I'm a wildlife biologist with the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. And I'm here to introduce a video I put together about one of my favorite animals, bats. Stick around after the video ends, and I'll try to answer some questions you may have. Until then, hope you enjoy. Even in cities, there is wildlife all around us. We just need to know where to look and what to look for. A lot of wildlife is in danger because we have built our cities over their homes or habitats. But there is still wildlife here and open spaces for us to enjoy and hold on to. Parks belong to us all, and it is our responsibility to protect parks and make them welcome for all of the life that depends on them. Not just for ourselves, but for the people that came before us and the people that will be here after. We can all do our part to help wildlife survive now and into the future. The future is dependent upon the actions that we take today. I grew up finding comfort in animals and joy in the great outdoors. Today, I work with the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy and the National Park Service. I get to study a lot of our local wildlife across San Francisco and Marin County. I feel very lucky to have a job that I love. One of my favorite projects is our Marin Bat Monitoring Project. We work with one-TAM agency partners and the U.S. Geological Survey to learn about bats across the county so that we can better protect and conserve them. As it turns out, bats are one of my favorite animals too. I hope by the end of this talk, you'll have a better appreciation and understanding of these incredible animals. First of all, what makes a bat a bat? Sometimes people think of bats as flying mice, but they're actually not closely related to rodents at all. They aren't closely related to birds either. Bats are the only true flying mammals. Mammals are animals that have fur, produce milk for their babies, and give birth to live young instead of laying eggs. Humans are mammals too. There are other mammals, like flying squirrels, that can leap through the air at impressive distances, but they technically do not propel themselves in flight like bats do. Unlike birds, bats use their wings to pull themselves through the air, sort of like how we pull ourselves through the water when we go for a swim. The bone structure of a bat's wing are much more similar to the bones in our human hands than they are to bird wings. Their wings are essentially made up of extra long finger bones. In fact, The scientific name for bats is Chiroptera, which is Latin for hand wing. Bats are nocturnal, which means they are most active when it's dark outside. They sleep during the daytime. Some can live to be more than 30 years old, which is a very long time for something so small. There are over 1,400 species of bats worldwide, and they can be found on every continent except Antarctica. Fossil records show that bats have been on our planet for more than 50 million years. They were here even before the earliest humans. Bats are an incredibly diverse group. They come in different sizes. The smallest bat is about the size of a bumblebee, so we have nicknamed them the Bumblebee Bat. The largest bats are a species of fruit bat, and some can have a 5 to 6 foot wingspan. Different species of bats have different behaviors and survival strategies. There are bats that eat mosquitoes, fruit, beetles, fish, and even scorpions. However, all of the 13 species of bat that we encounter in the San Francisco Bay Area are insectivores, which means that they eat insects. Some of our local bats hunt for moths thousands of feet up in the air, and others hunt for tiny insects on the surface of water. Some live here year-round, while some migrate for hundreds of miles each year across the Americas. All of our bats here are on the smaller side, with some weighing less than 5 grams, which is the weight of 1 nickel. Unlike most humans, many bats rely on their ears instead of their eyes to navigate the world around them and to find insects to eat. This process is called echolocation. They produce high-frequency sound that bounces off the objects around them and then returns to their ears. Bats have an incredible sense of hearing that is much better than our human ears. They can hear a lot of sound that's too high in frequency for our limited range of hearing. Bats can be very challenging to study, and there's so much we have yet to learn about them. Our local bats are small, fast, and nocturnal. They can be difficult for human eyes to see, especially at night, and they can be difficult and sometimes impossible for human ears to hear. So how do we study bats anyway? One way is by catching bats with a large net that we call a mist net. These nets are sort of like a super tall volleyball net, but with a finer mesh and smaller holes. We set them up over flyways, like creeks, where determine which species of bat we have recorded. This technology has allowed us to determine that there are at least 13 species of bat living in Marin County. Another way we study bats is by making emergence observations. Once we locate a known bat roost, which is where bats sleep in the daytime, we wait close by and keep watch beginning at sunset. We then count and record the bats as they fly out in search of food and water. So why do we study bats anyway? Bats are very diverse, interesting, and unique, and bats are very beneficial to humans and the environment as well. Some bats can eat up to their own body weight in insects over the course of one night. They are amazing at pest control and save farmers in the United States billions of dollars each year. In other parts of the world, bats help populate plants and fruit as pollinators and seed spreaders or dispersers. For some plants that have flowers that only open up at night, bats are vital pollinators. Bats pollinate over 500 plant species, including some types of mango, banana, and agave. Bats are currently under threat for many reasons. Unfortunately, humans have destroyed and changed a lot of bat habitat that bats use to eat, sleep, and raise their young. Most bats only give birth to 1 pup per year, so it can take a threatened population a very long time to recover. Climate change and the use of pesticides may also be harmful to bat populations and their food sources. We are also losing a lot of bats to big wind turbines, as well as a deadly disease called white nose syndrome. White nose syndrome was first discovered in the US around 2006 and 2007. It causes a fungus to develop on hibernating bats, which causes them to wake up early from their hibernation and use up critical fat reserves that they need to survive in the winter. We have already lost more than 6 million bats in the US due to this deadly disease. We check all of the bats we catch for signs of white nose syndrome, and fortunately, we have not yet found it on our local bats. As we learn more about bats, we also learn about better ways to protect them. Fortunately, there are ways that you can help too. First of all, if you see a bat on the ground, do not touch it. It is likely sick or injured. You can call your local wildlife rescue for advice instead. To keep bats, birds, and other wildlife safe, it's best to keep your cats indoors only. Studies show that cats are very skilled hunters and can cause major damage to local wildlife populations. Some areas have local community science projects where you can help count bats by conducting emergence observations. Contact your local parks for more information about their volunteer programs. You can also buy or build a bat box to encourage bats to live near your home. These take some research, but you can find a lot of great information at batcon.org. And lastly, we can all help bats by learning more about them and sharing what we've learned with others. You don't have to wait till you're an adult to study wildlife. You're doing it right now. Your local library has books and ebooks that can help you learn about all kinds of different animals. You can also start getting experience in making observations now by spending time watching wildlife outdoors. There are plants, insects, birds, and all kinds of other life to observe, identify, and protect in your own backyard.
So that was pretty cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it was very, very interesting to hear. We are so lucky to have Katie with us here today live to ask her some questions. The first question was, where do bumblebee bats live?
Good question. We don't have them locally. I believe they're also called the Kitti's hognose bat. And I think that they are native to like Thailand and Myanmar. So yeah, we don't have them here, but we have a lot of other great tiny bats here too.
Cool. I'm gonna try to say that 5 times really fast in my free time because that sounds like a really fun alliteration. Actually, the first question that we received pretty early on was, is there much of a difference between species of bats found in Marin versus the peninsula and the rest of the Bay Area?
That's a good question. Yeah, I believe that there is some variation. It might be the difference between like a couple of different species that prefer slightly different climates at different times of the year. But generally, I think that it's for the most part similar species, but also unless somebody does a big county-wide study, which is what we're doing in Marin County, it's a lot of effort to know for sure what bat species you have present. And you have to do a couple different techniques to figure that out, because there are some bats that we pick up on our acoustic detectors with ultrasonic microphones that we don't catch in mist nets. And there are bats that we can catch that we don't usually pick up with the ultrasonic microphones and the acoustic detectors. So it takes a lot of effort in order to know what species of bat you have present. So until somebody really does a big study like we're doing, you don't really know for sure.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work, right?
It's a lot of fun though.
Yeah, definitely. We have your junior ranger cousins that asked a question, Luke and Diego. They were watching.
Hey.
Hopefully
Hi,
they still are. But their question was, what made you interested in bats? And how do we help keep a healthy bat population? And yeah.
Ooh, good question, guys. Hi, Luke and Diego. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So yeah, I've been interested in animals my entire life. And when I was a kid, I used to spend a lot of time in the library reading books about Jane Goodall. And I didn't have a specific animal that I wanted to study I just knew that I wanted to do something to help animals. And just by one way or another, I kind of got interested in birds by working with a mentor that was an amazing ornithologist. His name is Ryan Phillips. And yeah, just kind of one job led to another. And before this job, I really didn't have any experience with bats. So I've only been studying bats for the past 3 years now, but this has by far been my favorite job. And yeah, definitely my favorite project.
Wonderful. What I really loved about your video was you have some really key solution-based answers to how we could help keep a healthy bat population, right? So I appreciate that, and people will be able to rewatch that as well. What kind of bat were you holding in the video?
I'm
and
not
in the
sure.
picture, oh, okay.
Well, I'm not sure which part.
Oh.
Yeah, because I think there's a couple different pictures and videos of me holding a few different species. Hoary bats are super cute, so a lot of times I can't resist getting a picture of myself with a hoary bat or getting pictures of hoary bats in general. There's some great close-ups of there that some of my coworkers took as well. So yeah, I'm not sure which picture, but it could have been a hoary bat.
Can you treat white nose disease either individually or across a population?
Great question. Hopefully someday. We're not at that point now, but there's a lot of amazing research being done right now. There's a lot of really brilliant and dedicated bat biologists out there that have been studying this disease for a long time. So as of right now, I know that there's been like clinical trials that have suggested some possible treatments for the future, but as of right now, there's no effective treatment or cure that's being used in the wild.
We talked a little bit about this question yesterday, actually, and it came through, are bats blind?
Ooh, I love it when people ask this question. Thank you for that. They're actually not blind, and different species of bats, because there's so many and they're so diverse, some can see better than others, and some can see in ways that we can't. So because bats, most of our bats are nocturnal, at least all of our local bats are, they don't really need to see necessarily colors like we do in the daytime, whereas fruit bats might have some range of color because they're looking for specific plants and fruit to eat. But yeah, a lot of bats can see as well as we can at night, if not better, as far as we know.
So we should stop saying blind as a bat.
Absolutely. It's not true at all.
Great. We have a ton of appreciation for the video and for the work that you do. Somebody says bats are actually cute. Why are people afraid of them? What are some misconceptions and yeah.
Oh, I'm really glad somebody asked that. I think in general that humans tend to be afraid of the unknown. And up until recently, bats have been, and even now, they're really challenging to study. And it's really just been technology in recent years that's made these great advances in bat research. So yeah, I think humans generally, a lot of humans have fear of the unknown, and there's so many unknowns still when it comes to bats. But I don't think they're scary at all. I think they're really cool and they're really cute, and they're a whole lot of fun to watch and to study.
Someone also mentions here that they have amazing immune systems, but that they've also heard that bats are a reservoir for many diseases, including coronaviruses. So what, could you speak a little bit about that? I know that's a very, that's in the here and now. So we'd like to kind of hear it from the expert.
Yeah, so I will start off by saying I am not a virologist or an epidemiologist, and there's still a lot that we're learning about coronaviruses in general. But yeah, like the person said, bats have amazing immune systems. So sometimes they can host viruses without getting especially sick from them, which is really fascinating and something that could benefit humans in the future the more we learn about it. So yeah, it's definitely something that's in progress and something that we are very interested in, but we don't know a whole lot about yet.
And I noticed in the video that you have gloves on when you're handling the bats. Do you take any other precautions when interacting with bats?
Yeah, so most wildlife biologists first have to get a rabies vaccine before we can handle any wildlife, not just bats. I think a lot of people tend to associate bats with rabies, but you're really not more likely to get rabies from bats than from any other animal. It's a super rare thing, fortunately. So the main reason we wear gloves is actually for the bat's own protection in case we don't want to transmit any potential things between different bats. So we actually wear a fresh set of gloves between handling each individual bat, and we decontaminate all of the tools and equipment that we use to take various measurements on the bats as well.
Very, very cool. We have Finley, who wants to know what the weirdest bat in the world is.
Ooh, hi, Finley. That's a good question too. There are so many different species, so it would really depend on the person and what they think is weird. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about our local bats, and I think pallid bats are really strange and interesting. Pallid bats are the ones that can eat scorpions. They may have some sort of immunity to scorpion venom. I'm not completely sure. But yeah, I think they're strange and interesting, and they will hunt for scorpions and other insects on the ground instead of catching things in flight, which is how most insectivorous bats forage. So yeah, I think they're pretty weird and interesting, but you can do some research and see which one you think is the weirdest bat, because there are all kinds of different bats.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Weird is a state of mind, right? So I think
Absolutely.
finding your resources, going through some books or some websites, the resources that you shared would be really cool to find what's the weirdest bat to you, right? Or for you that you think. So a couple more questions, if you still have some time.
Absolutely.
Great. What time do bats come out at night? That's pretty specific.
Ooh, yeah. So there is some variation between different species of bats. There's some that come out right when the sun comes down, right as soon as the sun comes down. And there's some species that will come out a little later in the night. But if you want to see bats for yourself, the best time to do it is usually within the first like half an hour or so after sunset. As soon as things start getting dark, bats will start coming out. And the best place to see them is usually if you have a still or moving body of fresh water, because as soon as bats come out, they often want to get a drink and get something to eat. So a lot of times when people are camping near a lake or a river, sometimes that's a good place to see bats. Even in Golden Gate Park, around some of those big ponds, and like Stowe Lake, for example, if you're there a little bit after the sun goes down, right as the sky is starting to get dark, you might see some bats.
I'm hearing so many similarities kind of as you're sharing a little bit more about bats. So I think that's really cool. And you might have talked a little bit about this earlier, but do different species of bats interact with each other?
Yeah, actually, I think that's really fascinating too. Sometimes we'll find bat roosts that have multiple species of bats actually roosting in the same spot together. And some of these roosts can be very small. Bats are pretty small and they can squeeze into really tiny places for protection from predators. So yeah, sometimes we do see different species of bats both sleeping in the same roost, but also foraging and drinking water in the same areas too, which is really neat.
Very, very cool. A couple more questions. People are just so interested. So that's really, really great. Yeah. And another one just came in. Okay. So what kind of, are there any volunteering or citizen science opportunities to help with surveys that you know of, or that you could kind of point towards more information about?
Good question. I think a lot of things are on hold temporarily as we work on getting a vaccine for this virus for all of us. But I would recommend there's a lot of great local organizations that have chapters in different areas, like the Audubon Society, for example. They do a lot of great work around bird surveys, and they're usually taking volunteers. The Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy here does a lot of great volunteer work, and they always need more folks involved, and of all ages too, and for all kinds of different volunteer projects. And your local parks in general, a lot of them have really outstanding volunteer programs. I know if you're in Marin, you should look up One Tam. One Tam has a lot of great community science oriented projects as well.
And are you involved in or know a little bit about the bat studies that are around Mount Diablo? Or are there bat studies that happen there?
There are, yeah. I don't know too much about them, but one of my colleagues, my favorite bat biologist, Gabe Reyes, has been doing a long-term acoustic monitoring study of bats on Mount Diablo. So a lot of the data that we collect, we submit to NABAT, which is the North American Bat Monitoring Association. And they're doing a whole kind of collecting all this data and doing a study across all of North America to detect trends in bats and species presence. So yeah, Gabe, I know that Gabe Reyes with the US Geological Survey is doing some research about bats on Mount Diablo specifically.
Very cool, very cool. So we have a shout out from Bryce, who appreciates the dog, not a bat. Love that image right there.
Yes, shout out to Juno the dog.
Juno the dog, amazing. Diego asks, where are 6-foot wingspan bats found?
Yeah, so fruit bats are found in a lot of other places in the world. And there are a lot of different species of fruit bats as well. So there are in Africa, the whole continent has a couple species, Europe, Asia, we just don't have them here. There are also fruit bats in South America as well. But yeah, we just don't have any locally, unfortunately, because they're really neat. But yeah, most of the rest of the world has different species of fruit bats and pollinating bats. And also in, I think a lot of people associate fruit bats with Australia because they have those flying foxes and they have really big wingspans too. And you can also see them locally at the Oakland Zoo, has a really neat fruit bat exhibit as well.
Cool. Do you name the bats that you catch?
Yes, we actually do. We give our bats some really silly bat pun names. So we had, let's see, we had a bat we named Batrick Swayze. We had a hoary bat that we named Hoary Potter. What else? We had a Batterina, like ballerina. Yeah, Battley Portman. It just depends on how creative we are on the night that we're up catching bats.
Nice.
If anyone has any bat pun names, please send them our way because I think we're getting low.
A couple more questions. Where do all of these bats roost in the Bay Area?
Yeah, so bats, we're still learning about that. And that was part of one of the goals for the study that we're doing is try to figure out where bats are roosting and what type of habitat features they're using to roost in so that we can better protect and manage those habitats and features for bats specifically. So we get bats that roost in abandoned buildings, trees of all types and ages. In some places, bats will prefer to roost in different rock features. And it also depends on the time of year too, and what the bats need as far as temperature regulation as well, and whether they're raising pups or whether they're hibernating. So yeah, they actually roost in all kinds of different things.
Cool. And you talked a little bit about this a couple questions ago, but where a bat will want to kind of wake up and go have some water. So that it sounds like the roosting kind of, or maybe not, but how do they access water to drink?
So they'll actually drink in flight and graze and scoop up right on the water while they're in flight. It's a pretty cool thing to see. If you get a chance, I would highly recommend it.
Wow, great. And then finally, this is a really good segue, but do you have any advice for young people who are interested in a career in studying wildlife, and not just young people, maybe people who are just interested in studying a career or in starting a career studying wildlife?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. There's actually a lot of things you can do. And I think on the most basic level is to get outside and be curious and try to identify the different animals you see, the different plants you see, different insects. There's a lot of great tools to do that. There's a lot of great field guide books you can check out. There's even some great apps on your phone. So I would say be curious and get outside is the first step. And you can do that at any age, at any time. and also just getting involved with your local parks and different volunteer opportunities, you can start gaining experience and essentially start building your resume at any age if you want to study wildlife. And really, it's something that I think there's a place for everyone when it comes to wildlife conservation. Just got to find where that place is.
Very cool. Last question came in. Why are bat wings bigger than their bodies?
Ooh, I like that one. Yeah, it's probably has to do with their kind of flight dynamics, but I'm not completely sure. That's a really cool question.
I like that. Yeah, that could be another kind of question to research, right? A little bit more.
Sounds like that might have came from a future scientist.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Katie, for just kind of being here and coming back
Yes.
online and sharing your knowledge and your love of bats with us. And we really, really appreciate it. You created that video. You just have such a great way of kind of sharing this love and knowledge. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And I hope everyone stays curious and gets outside.
Yeah, so this video will be up for everybody to watch again, watch with your friends, just wait for the reposting of it. And then tune in next Friday. We're actually going to talk a little bit more about careers. So we're going to have a live panel with your national park staff and Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy to learn about the career paths of several park rangers and other people employed at the park. So thank you again, Katie, and we'll thank you everybody for joining us at this Nature Boost. We'll see you again next week. Bye.